Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a special series called Franchise Envy, where I talk to successful, happy franchisees.
Up next,
So, in the middle of the pandemic, you got into a pet franchise.
because they've kept up with that small feel, which is super exciting. So I
Love it.
think it really depends on the feel of the brand.
Yeah.
So don't expect anyone to drive the train for you. You still have to drive it yourself.
Such a great response. I have Leslie Bottesch here today from Houndstown. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is so awesome to have you. So, how long have you been a Houndstown franchisee?
Since November 2020, so just over 3.5 years.
So, in the middle of the pandemic, you got into a pet franchise.
We went to contract before the pandemic, and then it ended up our construction and all those phases took us to the height of pandemic when we opened.
Got it. Understand. So is this your first business?
Yes and no. I owned a school for children, so I never saw it as a business, but it is a business. It was a child development center. So this is really my second business.
Okay, got it. What were you doing prior to being a franchisee? Was that with the school?
Yes. So I have been in education for over 35 years. I'm showing my age a little bit. So this was
No.
definitely a second phase in my life that I did not expect, which is super awesome, but was frightening too. But yeah, I was with kids for the whole time. I didn't like how children were getting lost in the shuffle and just seen as dollar signs. So I wanted to create an educational environment that really saw the children and tried to have a path to success for them individually.
I love that. You know, pets and kids are two hot industries. So why did you end up getting into a franchise in the first place?
I started getting into a franchise because I wanted to work with dogs. I knew that. So the one thing I knew when I was retiring from teaching and selling my school was we had therapy dogs in our program. So we had dogs around us every day with the kids. And it was exciting, it was thrilling, it calms everyone, it brought a smile to our face. So I knew whatever I was going to do, I wanted it to do with animals. I also know I didn't know what I was doing
Right.
at all because it's completely foreign to me as far as that industry was concerned. So I started looking into doggy daycares. I started looking at different franchises and their experience and how they
Got
work
it.
with their franchisees. And that's how I ended up being a franchise owner because I knew I needed someone that knew it a lot more than I did.
I love it. Good. So I ask everybody this question as well. What were you planning to be when you grew up, when you were very, very young? Did you always aspire to be a teacher or maybe an astronaut or a firefighter or a ballet dancer, perhaps?
I was more of a confused kid, but I think I always gravitated toward animals. My very first job was in an animal adoption center cleaning poop out of kennels. That was like it. So at that time, and I think as I was growing up, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then the amount of schooling, because at I wasn't proficient in school when
Right.
I was younger, I struggled. So I was like, or the billion years of education that you needed, and it just didn't seem like it was going to be a right fit. But in that time, I started volunteering in schools as well. So it kind of just naturally unfolded of doing what I enjoyed.
Got it. Makes sense. What was your all-in investment with Houndstown? And did you commit to just one location? Are you doing more? Tell us about that.
The all in investment construction and all for us, mind you, it was a different time with pre-COVID pricing. So I think it was about $750,000 all in for us. Um,
Does that mean 250? I'm joking.
yeah,
Right around
that would have been
250.
awesome.
Got it.
But no, we just committed to one. Myself and my business partner, we were both preschool teachers. I had a family of my own, quite a large family with 4 children. So I wasn't ready to commit to a multi-unit. Yet that's in consideration now at this time.
I love it. Good news. So why this particular franchise and what really sold you? You've already told us that obviously you had the interest in kids and always an interest in pets and you were exploring other pet brands. So what really resonated about Houndstown specifically?
It was the difference in the discovery call when I was contacting franchisees. Hounds Town popped up when we least expected. We had been looking for a while and we hadn't heard of them at all. And then this really like boom, bright blue and green, obnoxious ad came out that drew our attention.
It was
And
fate.
I was exactly, it was fake. So we called them. And what I saw as a differential is their first questions weren't, how liquid am I? How much money do I have? Do I want to rather just be an investor because they can do it all for me and I don't even have to think or contribute to the brand, when I called multiple other brands. And part of my personality is I want to create, I want to cultivate, I want to be valued still as even though it's entrepreneurial, I'm not an entrepreneur with a franchise, but I want to feel like it's my own, not that I'm running someone else's. And I really connected with Hounds Town because of the way they made me feel, but also more importantly, their most top concern was, do you love dogs? Do you care about dogs? Are you going to make sure that they get the most ultimate care within our philosophy? It wasn't the business plan. The business plan was important to them and we went over that, but the compassion was first and foremost. And I totally resonated with that. And I said,
Yeah.
oh, I could do this.
I love that. I love that the way you describe that, because myself being a franchise broker consultant, I always tell my clientele, once you start talking to brands like dating, you have a feel. You really start to have a feel that I can't describe of whether or not this fits for you. So you are describing that fit that you probably couldn't have described beforehand, right?
Right. And it's such a combination of a stressful intellectual decision on protecting yourself, your family, your investments. And let's just go for it because it feels right. It's totally worth it. I can make this happen. But
I
that
love
is
it.
totally not intellectual.
Yeah, no, I get it. And that I love how it fit for you. Leslie, next question. Was size a factor? Were you looking at bigger brands, smaller brands? Did you and your partner, everybody always wants to be part of a McDonald's system. And I always tell people it's kind of hard to get a McDonald's. So you have to go with the brand that has availability. So was that a factor?
Size for us initially, was size a factor when choosing a brand? I'm going to say yes and no. It came up later. We didn't realize like something big and wonderful was great, but there was something just completely exciting. And that's the only way I can put it, about going into what at that point was an emerging brand, that it wasn't all preset, and that yes, there would be bumps and bobbles along the way, but that I would be part of the entire brand success was literally just enthralling to me, that I wasn't just completely preset. It also helped with the pricing because they were looking for people that could afford to invest at the time. And again, the franchise fees, I don't believe have changed at all, but they were working with their franchisees differently, more closely, more conversation. The communication actually seemed to be increased to me because they were so excited about growing their brand. And that excitement became contagious. So we ended up going with something that initially was very, very small, but that wasn't our target in our thought processes. We were just calling successful brands in that realm of dog daycare. But it ended up that it was the best choice ever for us to go with something that was small, but yet I also helped talk to other people coming into the system now. And it's just as exciting with over 60 more, and we're 27 more in the works as it was when there was like 10 when I
Yeah,
came in the system, because they've kept up with that small feel, which is super exciting. So I
love it.
think it really depends on the feel of the brand.
What was the hardest part of launching the franchise? As you look back during the pandemic when you launched, what was the hardest part?
The hardest part about launching the franchise was really the familiarity of letting people know that dog daycare is more of a necessity and not a luxury. It's actually new to the realm. I mean, we had mainly kennels and we had boarding places in the area, but the concept of letting your dog be a dog and play all day and how beneficial it could be was very new. Like no one really knew about it. So educating the public was a challenge. But then once it caught on, it was an exciting form of growth, but really being new not only to the industry, but then new to the concept at all in our part of the state. That was a challenge trying to let people know, like, they're like, why does my dog need daycare? What is this all about? So getting that lead work in the education part was a bit of a challenge, but also exciting as well.
Awesome. What is the best thing that has resulted from you being a franchisee of Hounds Town?
The best thing that's resulted from being a franchisee is really helping myself, as corny as it sounds, on a path of self-discovery. I was a mom, I was a teacher, I always had these outside stresses, and I never had a lot of introspective time whatsoever. And during COVID, during the build out, during those different obstacles that we had to encounter, and seeing the support of the franchise and seeing the joy that it could bring, it actually allowed me to be a little bit more myself, kind of relax a little bit, and not only identify more with what I was doing, but then take on projects because Houndstown allows me to, which is fabulous. There's so much flexibility there to take on charity projects and community projects, which allow me and my personal personality to just come out, where versus I
Yeah.
was always playing by someone else's rules. So there's standards, there's brand standards, there's quality, all those align, but they really do value me as a person and ideas. And the fact that I can still help cultivate culture and creative givebacks to our community has allowed me to grow as a person in my 50s, which I am so appreciative.
I love the thoughtful answers, and I could hear your passion coming through pretty much with each answer. So I
I
love
love it.
this. I love it. What are your secrets to success? At least one.
Maybe my excitement, I don't know. I
Well,
think connecting.
but you know what? That is an appropriate answer, and obviously, your answer is your answer. Um, Connecting with people, your passion, your excitement, energy is a big contributing factor, I think, to success. People don't know that, especially when it's positive. So I love that. But yeah, elaborate if you care to.
Well, there's a lot that is missing in the world right now. We're all going through turmoil, conflict, and what's so beautiful about Houndstown is that it's dogs. So kindness and love is like always first and foremost. There's people in my lobby that I know would never get along outside my lobby, but they're just complimenting on how adorable their dog is, and they're engaging in conversations.
Yeah.
So we have a rule at our Houndstown, and I think it's the secret sauce to our success, along with the Houndstown branding philosophies, is it's always kindness and compassion first, unless it compromises safety. That is a slogan in our personal store, because if someone needs help and you can give it, then do that. Go ahead and do that first. Don't be so rigid. Be
Yeah.
open. Listen. We always teach our staff that listening is much more important than talking. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that's lacking as well. So people need to feel important. They need to feel validated because they are. We don't know what they're going through. So I think just not only paying attention to the business plan, but understanding everyone as an individual that needs something in their life is very important to recognize when you're running a day-to-day customer-based business.
Yeah. I love that. Great stuff. Why are other people, either in Houndstown or other franchisees maybe you know of, why are people not successful in a business?
Why are people not successful? It's so hard to tell because I'm so hyper focused on. I have like two speeds. It's usually sleep or go, as my kids would say. But I honestly think accountability. That would be my number one answer. I think in any business, in life in general, the lack of success is not realizing that you are a pivotal part to that. There's really no one else to blame. There's no one else to look, because you have to be a problem solver. You're going to have problems. You're going to have obstacles. That is a given. Just to hope everything's going to be a skip through the tulips and go well, that would be an illusion, thinking that everything is just going to be perfect. So being focused on solutions versus the problems,
Yes.
I think is how you can be successful. I think people focused on the problems and getting so overwhelmed that they will not present solutions or try to find another path is the reason why people are not successful, because there's no such thing as no way through, at least not in
Yeah.
my house.
Yeah. I love that. Great. Great stuff. So in this business, and I'll make sure the item 19 and the numbers from the disclosure document that are easily accessible for anybody are in here. But annual sales, and you could talk about yourself. I mean, really, what can a great franchisee for Houndstown do in revenue per location?
And it really, how you do in revenue per location depends on how long you've been open, clearly population and things like that, like you mentioned with the FDD. For us, the growth was great. We were growing between 26 and 30% per year.
Wow.
We also were a lot of boots to the ground, letting people know who we are, talking to people face to face, leaving our store. Even before we were open, inviting people in on pre-tours before we were open. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But our goal by year 4 is to do $1 million worth of sales. On year 3, we were real close, and we were like, oh. But honestly, I think for Houndstown as a goal is they would love everyone to be there for our 5-year mark. There's not a specific path to get there, but yes, the income potential is great, and then we feel we'll even surpass that as years to come. We're still relatively new, and we are right on track, if not to be early versus on time with that.
I love it. So almost $1 million last year. You just missed that. What type of net income can you generate? As you probably know, and I'm sure your partner and you have had conversations about return on investment. But when I'm talking to people on a regular basis, they're like, Lance, the stock market can get me 10.5% every year since like 1950. So I mean, obviously, if you can make more than 10.5%, have your business write-offs and have that equity growth and whatever. So I'm doing quick math. So you didn't do $1 million last year. Let's say it was 900,000. I'm going low here.
Little less.
Yeah, well, but 20% of 900,000 is 180. So I would imagine, there is great potential in 6-figure income every year.
Yes.
What is it for you, and what are other successful franchisees able to pull to the bottom line? Are there
I
good
mean, I
margins? That's the
definitely,
question.
yeah, as far as how much income that you can make a year, 6-figure, uh, you know, yes, absolutely. That is our goal, to continue to grow and to make that six-figure salary a year. I was amazed that, by year 2, I was doing 60,000 a year, and that's in our 2nd year in business, as a part-time administrator. So for me, that was hugely successful because, making that in teaching after, 15 years, and then, on the 2nd year with this. But some franchisees are definitely making 6 figures. It depends if you're a single unit or multi-unit, um, what your loan status is.
Yeah,
That's going to be a whole different world as well. SBA loan is gone. That's it. That's going to be absolutely amazing.
yeah,
So I foresee in the near future, definitely doing, hopefully by year 5, the $180,000 a year that you mentioned. And there are other franchisees that are absolutely making within 200,000 a year.
yeah. And that's kind of what I figured. If you can get to $1 million a year, which I know Houndstown franchisees can for sure, plus, on one location, you're going to be able to produce 200,000 in net income when
Yeah.
you run it efficiently. When you're new, not so much. But I want to clarify and go back to something, Leslie. You are working part-time in the business.
Yes, I am working part-time in the business, and I am working on the business full-time.
Yes, but part-time in the business, so you have a manager that essentially runs the place.
Yes, so the person that runs the place is a combination of my business partner, which is an owner.
Right.
She's
Okay.
there about 3 days a week out of the 7, and then we have an incredible staff. Actually, we've only been open 3.5 years. 2 of the managers have been with me since pretty much day 1, and they worked their way up to management. So we kind of all went through the trenches together of the training, and they earn their place, and they understand the program, and they're passionate. And that was important to us. So we have
Yeah.
a couple part-time managers, and then one newer manager that was just promoted that has been a kennel attendant, been with us for 2 years.
Love it.
So these are people excited about the program that'll actually give us even more freedom. So if we do want to open up a second location, and do more community work, we can lay the groundwork for all of that.
Great stuff. Is there anything that you would have done differently knowing everything you know now?
I would have made my grooming room larger if I would do anything differently now. I would have had 2 bathtubs. Yes, we do a lot of exit service. So if I would have, known, because again, remember, I had no experience in the business. So anything I would have done differently would to help to understand that some of those auxiliary services are or ancillary services are very, very important. Because people love to get a clean, fluffy dog when they get home and completely worry free. So I probably would expand my grooming sense, a bit, and maybe I would have signed up for a multi-unit, if I knew and I had the capability at that time, because
Yeah,
we're just thrilled with the growth and what's going on.
love it. So what's next for you? Is there a possibility, I think you said it earlier, that you might do another location? Maybe not. Maybe you add another brand eventually.
Right. Well, it is absolutely possibility of what's in the future for us is another location. It's more the pressure from our customers and the rescues that we help and work with. They're north of us by about 30 minutes. So we do provide transportation to a lot of the rescue dogs that we are helping to socialize that we donate. But they're like, it'd be great if you could have one up here. So we're actually kind of looking for properties now to kind of get a feel of what we can do, how much expansion would be. The brand is being very supportive. So yeah, it actually might be in our future, and we're excited about it, but we are still focusing on the current growth. My location is quite large
Yeah.
for a Hounds Town. Well, for a dog daycare in general, I have 10,000 square feet. So,
Wow.
our growth capability in-house is still, you know, it still can have exponential growth within the same location, and which excites us as well.
Awesome stuff. So what advice would you give to those listening that are interested in business ownership, potentially a franchise? What are those tips or tricks or bits of advice you'd like to share?
Well, the tips and tricks are what I'd like to share. Honestly, the biggest advice I could give as far as the first thing is that when you're considering a franchise, when you're considering going into business for yourself, if you're only looking at the structure and see what it can do for you and you feel all the risk is on which brand, then franchising probably is not for you. We always say that if you're looking at it and going, what do I identify with? Because I'm worth the risk, they should want me because I'm going to do what I can to make this the best brand possible, then it's for you. But if you're only looking at what they can give to you, every corporation, as wonderful as they are, they have multiple franchisees, and you have to honestly be part of moving along and being part of that train engine instead of expecting someone else to drive it for you.
Yeah.
So don't expect anyone to drive the train for you. You still have to drive it yourself.
Such a great response. This has been a great interview. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.